The town of Bardstown, Kentucky, looked like the kind of place where nothing truly terrible was supposed to happen. Nestled among rolling hills and famous bourbon distilleries, it carried the image of a peaceful American small town, a place where neighbors knew each other by name and front porches stayed lit long after sunset. Visitors saw charm, tradition, and quiet streets. Residents saw home. But beneath that picture-perfect surface, a darkness was beginning to take root. Over the span of just a few years, a series of shocking crimes would leave an entire community living in fear. One by one, lives would be stolen, families shattered, and questions would pile up faster than answers. Even today, many of those questions remain unanswered. The story begins in the early hours of May 25, 2013. Officer Jason Ellis had just finished another routine shift with the Bardstown Police Department. At 33 years old, Jason was respected throughout the community. He was a decorated officer, a devoted husband, a father of 2 children, and the department's only canine handler. Friends described him as hardworking, loyal, and deeply committed to protecting the people around him. Shortly before 2 a.m., he signed off duty and started the familiar drive home. It was a route he had traveled countless times before, a road he knew by heart. What Jason could never have imagined was that someone else knew that route just as well and had spent considerable time preparing for his arrival. As Jason approached exit 34 on the Bluegrass Parkway, his headlights suddenly illuminated something unusual. Large tree branches had been deliberately placed across the roadway, blocking the exit ramp. To any responsible officer, it looked like a potential hazard that could cause a serious accident. Jason pulled over, activated his emergency lights, and stepped out of his patrol vehicle. The night was silent except for the distant hum of traffic. He walked toward the obstruction, likely assuming he was about to clear debris left by a storm or perhaps a prank. Instead, he was stepping directly into a carefully planned ambush. The moment Jason began moving the branches, gunfire erupted from the darkness. Hidden somewhere beyond the roadside, an unseen attacker opened fire with a shotgun. Multiple blasts struck the officer before he had any chance to react. The attack was devastating and immediate. Jason never had the opportunity to draw his weapon or call for help. Within moments, his life was over. Several minutes later, another driver approached the exit and discovered a horrifying scene. A police cruiser with its lights still flashing, and Officer Jason Ellis lying motionless nearby. The murder sent shockwaves throughout Kentucky. Investigators quickly realized this was no random act of violence. The branches had been transported to the scene, strategically placed, and used to lure Jason from his vehicle. Whoever carried out the attack had planned it meticulously. As detectives examined the evidence, the case became even more troubling. Investigators believed the killers had likely studied Jason's routine. They knew when his shift ended. They knew which route he took home. They knew exactly where he would stop if he encountered an obstruction on the road. Some forensic findings suggested shots may have been fired from different distances, leading to speculation that more than one person could have been involved. Others believed a single shooter may have advanced toward Jason during the attack. Regardless of the exact details, one fact remained clear: this murder required preparation, patience, and knowledge. The question that haunted everyone was simple: why? Jason had no known enemies. There were no signs of personal disputes, secret criminal ties, or dangerous associations. Yet as the department's primary canine officer, he frequently assisted in narcotics investigations. Some theorized that local drug traffickers may have viewed him as a threat. Others wondered whether someone with law enforcement or military experience had orchestrated the ambush. Rumors spread through Bardstown, but solid answers never came. Despite a massive investigation involving state police and substantial reward money, no arrest was made. The first murder, in what would become a terrifying chain of events, remained unsolved. Less than a year later, tragedy struck Bardstown again. This time, the victims were 48-year-old Kathy Netherland and her 16-year-old daughter Samantha. Kathy was a beloved special education teacher known for her compassion and dedication to her students. Samantha was bright, ambitious, and thriving academically. She had recently been accepted into a prestigious college preparation program and had an exciting future ahead of her. Friends and family described both mother and daughter as kind-hearted people who stayed far away from trouble. They were the last people anyone would expect to become victims of a violent crime. On April 22, 2014, alarm bells began ringing when neither Kathy nor Samantha showed up where they were supposed to be. Calls went unanswered. Concern grew quickly. Eventually, family members went to check on them at their home just outside Bardstown. What they found inside would leave investigators stunned. Both Kathy and Samantha had been brutally murdered. The attack was extraordinarily violent. Kathy had been shot multiple times. Samantha had suffered severe injuries before her death. Evidence suggested the attack unfolded quickly, likely during the previous evening. There were no obvious signs of robbery, no clear motive, and no immediate suspects. The brutality seemed personal. Yet nothing in the victims' lives pointed toward anyone who would want to harm them. As detectives searched for clues, they released surveillance images of a vehicle seen leaving the area around the estimated time of the murders. The vehicle quickly became a focal point of the investigation. But despite public appeals and widespread media attention, it was never definitively connected to a suspect. Friends and family desperately searched for explanations, but none made sense. Kathy was a respected educator. Samantha was a teenager focused on school and her future. Neither appeared connected to criminal activity, dangerous relationships, or anything that could explain such a savage attack. The deeper investigators looked, the more baffling the case became. Adding another layer of mystery was a social media post Kathy had written months earlier. She described discovering shattered glass in the family's front door after hearing an unexplained noise outside their home. At the time, it seemed like nothing more than a strange incident. After the murders, however, many wondered whether it had been a warning sign. Had someone been watching the family, testing their reactions, or was it merely an unrelated coincidence that gained significance only in hindsight? Police never publicly established a connection. Like the murder of Jason Ellis before it, the killings of Kathy and Samantha Netherland produced more questions than answers, and as Bardstown struggled to process another devastating loss, no one realized that an even more famous and mysterious case was about to unfold. On July 5, 2015, another mystery emerged along the same stretch of Bluegrass Parkway. A maroon Chevrolet belonging to 35-year-old Crystal Rogers was found abandoned on the shoulder of the road. Her purse remained inside, her keys had been left behind. Even her cell phone was still in the vehicle, despite its battery having died. One tire was flat, but there was no sign of Crystal herself. It was as though she had simply vanished into the darkness without leaving a single clue behind. Crystal was the devoted mother of 5 children, and those who knew her agreed on one thing: she would never willingly disappear and abandon her family. From the very beginning, her loved ones believed something terrible had happened. Crystal had been in a long-term relationship with local property owner Brooks Houck, with whom she shared a young son. In the early years, the couple appeared happy, building a life together while Crystal helped manage Brooks' rental properties. But over time, cracks began to appear in the relationship. Family members later revealed that Crystal had become increasingly unhappy and had even discussed the possibility of leaving Brooks. When relatives were unable to contact her over the 4th of July weekend, panic quickly set in. Brooks claimed Crystal had left during the night without saying a word, but her family immediately rejected that explanation. They insisted she would never walk away from her children or vanish without contacting those closest to her. As the search intensified, investigators began focusing their attention on the people who had seen Crystal last. Brooks voluntarily sat down with detectives and described what he claimed had happened during Crystal's final hours. According to him, the couple had spent time together at his family's farm before returning home. He said they went to bed, and when he woke the next morning, Crystal was simply gone. Detectives listened carefully, asking detailed questions about their relationship, recent arguments, and reports from friends suggesting Crystal had planned to end the relationship. Brooks denied any serious problems between them, insisting they always managed to work through their disagreements. Yet investigators couldn't ignore the growing number of inconsistencies surrounding the case. Crystal's vehicle had been abandoned, but police dogs found no scent trail leading away from it, suggesting the location may not have been where she disappeared. During one interview, an unexpected phone call dramatically shifted the atmosphere inside the interrogation room. Brooks answered the call, and it was his brother, Nick Hoka, Bardstown police officer. Although the conversation itself revealed little directly, detectives immediately found its timing suspicious. Nick appeared to advise Brooks about how to handle the questioning, raising concerns that he might be influencing the investigation. After the interview ended, surveillance later showed the two brothers traveling together to the family farm and remaining there for several hours. Investigators desperately wanted to know what happened during that meeting, but neither brother offered a convincing explanation. What might have been an ordinary family conversation suddenly became another mystery layered on top of an already baffling disappearance. As investigators examined Nick Houck's role more closely, troubling details continued to emerge. During questioning, he struggled to explain why he had contacted Brooks while detectives were actively interviewing him. He also failed to provide a clear reason for meeting his brother immediately afterward at the farm. Detectives challenged his account repeatedly, pointing out surveillance footage that placed both men together during a critical point in the investigation. Nick maintained that the meeting was simply a coincidence, but investigators found that explanation increasingly difficult to accept. In a case built almost entirely on unanswered questions, every unexplained action only deepened their suspicions. Further examination of Nick's police cruiser reportedly revealed evidence that raised even more concerns. Investigators questioned him about forensic findings, suggesting the possible presence of biological material inside the vehicle. Nick denied having any explanation. Later, he agreed to undergo a polygraph examination, but the results only intensified investigators' doubts. While polygraph tests are not considered definitive evidence in court, detectives believed the examination indicated deception on key questions involving Crystal's disappearance. Months later, Nick was suspended and eventually dismissed from the Bardstown Police Department. Meanwhile, Brooks Houck was publicly identified as the primary suspect in Crystal Rogers' disappearance. Yet, despite years of investigation, countless interviews, and repeated searches of multiple properties, no charges related to Crystal's disappearance were filed, and Crystal herself remained missing. Crystal's disappearance devastated her parents, Tommy and Sherry Ballard, but neither accepted defeat. Refusing to wait for answers, they organized countless volunteer searches across fields, wooded areas, and abandoned properties throughout Nelson County. Tommy, especially, became the driving force behind the effort to find his daughter. Week after week, he followed every possible lead, no matter how unlikely it seemed. His determination inspired hundreds of volunteers, but as months passed, hope slowly gave way to heartbreak. Every unsuccessful search was another painful reminder that Crystal was still missing, and every passing day made the mystery even more unbearable. Then, on the morning of November 19, 2016, tragedy struck once again. Tommy Ballard was hunting with his young grandson on private land near the Bluegrass Parkway when a single gunshot shattered the quiet morning. Tommy collapsed after being struck in the chest. His grandson rushed back to him, desperately trying to help, but there was nothing the child could do. Before emergency responders arrived, Tommy died where he fell. Investigators quickly ruled out an accidental shooting, and evidence suggested he had been deliberately targeted. For many people following the Bardstown Mysteries, the similarities to Officer Jason Ellis' ambush were impossible to ignore. Once again, someone had been killed without warning, and once again, the person responsible vanished without a trace. By the end of 2016, Bardstown had become known not only for its bourbon and historic charm but also for one of America's most haunting collections of unsolved crimes. 4 major cases: Officer Jason Ellis, Kathy and Samantha Netherland, Crystal Rogers, and Tommy Ballard had left an entire community trapped in fear. Investigators openly acknowledged the possibility that some of the crimes could be connected, though no definitive evidence has ever publicly confirmed that theory. Others believe several of the cases may simply be tragic coincidences occurring in the same small town. Either possibility is deeply unsettling. Whether connected or not, each investigation remains marked by unanswered questions, shattered families, and lives forever changed. Years later, law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, continued pursuing leads, executing search warrants, and re-examining evidence in hopes of finally uncovering the truth. Rumors have circulated endlessly, suspects have remained under public scrutiny, and theories continue to divide both investigators and residents. Yet speculation has never replaced proof. At the center of every mystery are families still waiting for justice, especially Sherry Ballard, who has spent years searching not only for her missing daughter, but also for answers about the murder of her husband. Until those responsible are identified and held accountable, the darkness hanging over Bardstown refuses to fade. Behind the image of a peaceful small town lies a story of loss, resilience, and mysteries that continue to haunt Kentucky to this very day.